The Arizona desert in 1887 lay cloaked in an unusual shroud of ice and snow, its red sands transformed by a relentless blizzard that turned the horizon into a shimmering mirage of frost and desolation. Frostbite Valley, a remote outpost nestled between rugged mesas and skeletal creosote bushes, shivered under a sky heavy with gray clouds, its cracked earth whispering tales of survival, loss, and resilience amid the harsh winter grip. Ethan Ward rode into the stillness on his gray stallion, Storm, his broad shoulders hunched beneath a sun-faded duster now dusted with snow, his boots caked with ice from days on the trail. At 35, his face was a rugged map of lines etched by wind and hardship, a faint scar across his left cheek, a memento of a cattle rustler's blade. His hat, battered and frost-stiffened, shaded hazel eyes that carried a quiet resilience, a cowboy wandering since his family's ranch was lost to a flood, leaving him with a lasso, a rifle, and a heart heavy with unhealed wounds that gnawed at his spirit with every frozen breath. He'd come to Frostbite Valley to seek shelter from the storm, his canteen frozen solid, his saddlebags light after a lean season of cattle drives. The outpost was a rare respite, its solitude a stark contrast to the chaos of towns, its silence broken only by the howl of the wind against the wooden walls and the occasional crunch of snow under Storm's hooves. As Ethan dismounted near a dilapidated cabin, a sound pierced the stillness, a faint, trembling moan, barely audible over the blizzard, emanating from a snowdrift near the corral. He turned, his hand instinctively on his rifle, and froze. There, half buried in the snow, was an elder, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair matted with ice, his hands gnarled with age, his dark eyes wide with a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. His presence was a shock, a lifeline in the frozen wasteland, and his plight stirred a memory his father, lost to the cold years ago, a loss that had driven Ethan to this wandering life. Ethan dropped from Storm, rushing to the elder's side, his hands gentle as he brushed snow from the man's face. "I'm Ethan Ward," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "Can you move?" The elder, his voice weak but steady, replied, "I am Tahoma. Thank you. I was left to die." With a grunt of effort, Ethan lifted him, carrying the frail figure into the cabin, the wind howling at his back. Inside, the dim light of a dying fire revealed the elder's condition more clearly: frostbitten fingers, chapped lips, and a body trembling from the cold. Ethan stoked the fire, using his coat as a blanket and melting snow for water, which he offered in a tin cup. Tahoma drank slowly, his strength returning, his presence a disruption to Ethan's solitude. "Why help me?" Tahoma asked, his voice hoarse but curious, his dark eyes searching Ethan's face. Ethan met his gaze, his scar itching under the frost. "Lost my pa once to this cold. Can't leave you to die like that." Tahoma's lips tightened, but gratitude flickered in his expression, a reflection of a life shaped by wisdom and survival. As the fire crackled, Ethan prepared a meager meal from his last rations: dried beans and a scrap of bread, offering it to Tahoma. "Eat," he said. "It's all I've got." Tahoma accepted with a nod, his hands trembling as he ate, the act forging an unspoken bond between them. The next morning, as the blizzard eased and the sun struggled to pierce the gray sky, the valley's quiet, shattered footsteps approached, many of them, soft yet purposeful. Ethan grabbed his rifle, Tahoma rising with a carved staff, and peered out to see them, a band of Apache riders, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears and bows glinting in the pale light, led by a stout woman with a commanding presence. She dismounted, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her dark hair tied back with a leather strip, her face lined with the strain of leadership, her brown eyes meeting Ethan's with a mix of gratitude and wariness. "I am Nita," she said, her voice steady. "Tahoma is our elder. Thank you for sheltering him." Ethan lowered his rifle, his heart pounding, found him freezing, brought him in. Nita stepped closer, her hands steady as she knelt beside Tahoma. "Raiders attacked our camp, left him as bait. We've been tracking them since." She embraced the elder, relief cutting through the frost on her face. Ethan's mind raced. Raiders meant trouble, and this woman's arrival confirmed it. "Stay," he said, the words slipping out. "You're safe here." Nita's eyes narrowed, assessing him. "Why take us in? Men like you often take, not give." Ethan shrugged, his scar prickling. "Lost my family, can't turn away yours." That night, the cabin buzzed with quiet activity. Tahoma ate sparingly from a plate Ethan prepared, his strength returning, his presence a lifeline to Ethan's isolation. Nita tended the fire, her hands skilled, her warriors unloading supplies, blankets, dried meat, a woven mat stacked outside like an offering. "We can't stay long," Nita said. "Raiders hunt us led by Slade. They seek our sacred knowledge." Ethan's stomach tightened. Slade's name was a curse, a bandit who plundered Apache lands, his cruelty a shadow over the valley. "What knowledge?" he asked. Nita hesitated, then revealed a small, intricately carved tablet, its surface etched with symbols. "A tribal record. It guides to our hidden spring. Slade killed for it." The revelation hit Ethan like a gust. Such relics were coveted, a lure that had ruined men, but Tahoma's life and his people's safety were worth more. "I'll protect you," he said, his resolve firming, though doubt gnawed at him about the tablet's power. As the fire crackled, hoofbeats echoed in the distance, growing louder. Ethan grabbed his rifle, Nita rising with a spear, Tahoma clutching his staff. Shadows loomed 3 riders, their coats dusted with snow, their hats marked with Slade's gang insignia. The leader, a burly man with a scarred cheek, dismounted. "Ward," he barked. "That elder's ours. Slade wants him back." Ethan's jaw tightened. "He's free," he said, his rifle steady. "Ride off, or we fight." The man laughed, drawing a pistol. "You're a dead man, cowboy." Tahoma moved with surprising agility, his staff striking the man's hand, disarming him. Ethan fired, his shot grazing another rider's shoulder, sending them scattering. The third fled, shouting threats. "Slade'll burn you out." Ethan lowered his rifle, his heart pounding. Nita's eyes met his, a flicker of respect breaking through. "You didn't have to," she said. Ethan wiped frost from his brow, his scar itching. "Ain't right what they did. I've got my own ghosts." They settled in, the tribe's gratitude a quiet bond. Nita offered Ethan the tablet. "For your kindness," she said, "but it brings danger and a warning. Slade plans an attack." The desert stretched vast, its icy silence a promise of more trials. But Ethan's act of mercy had ignited a spark, a family forged in cold and peril. With Slade's wrath looming on the horizon, the Arizona desert, cloaked in a fragile layer of melting snow, unfurled like a treacherous sea of red sand as Ethan Ward, Tahoma, and the Apache tribe led by Nita ventured away from Frostbite Valley, the pale dawn casting long shadows across the icy expanse. Ethan led the way on foot, his sun-faded duster dusted with frost, his worn boots crunching through the frozen dunes, his lasso coiled at his hip, his rifle slung across his back. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore a mixture of determination and unease, his hazel eyes scanning the horizon for signs of Slade's outlaws, a quiet resolve battling the weight of his past solitude. Tahoma walked beside him, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair now freed from ice, his gnarled hands clutching a carved staff, his dark eyes wise with survival despite his exhaustion. Nita followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her hands carrying the intricately carved tablet, her brown eyes vigilant with a leader's protectiveness, flanked by a dozen Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears and bows glinting in the weak light. The journey to a hidden Apache canyon near Eagle's Perch, a 2-day trek, was their goal, but the desert held other trials to test their fragile alliance. Their water was scarce, the canteen they'd salvaged from Frostbite Valley reduced to a few icy slivers. Their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of dried berries Nita had foraged. The cold bit deep, its chill a relentless adversary, the silence broken only by the crunch of snow, the rasp of their breathing, and the distant howl of a coyote echoing through the valley. Ethan's mind churned with the previous day's events, his impulsive sheltering of Tahoma, the arrival of the tribe with their warning, the threat of Slade. He'd taken Tahoma in to ease his own guilt, but their presence now drew danger, a price he hadn't foreseen. He offered Nita water, a gesture of goodwill, his hand trembling slightly from the cold. Nita accepted, her eyes narrowing. "Why risk this for us?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chill. Ethan met her gaze, his scar itching under the frost. "Lost my pa once to this cold. Can't leave you to die like that." Nita's expression softened, but suspicion lingered, a reflection of a life shaped by betrayal and resilience. The tribe walked with a quiet dignity, their buckskin garments rustling softly, the tablet catching the pale light. Nita shared their story as they moved, her voice low and resonant. Slade's outlaws raided our camp, stole our supplies, killed many. Tahoma was left as a decoy. We've tracked them since, fearing his return. Tahoma added, his tone grave. He seeks our tablet. It guides to our hidden spring. A young warrior, Kono, muttered. He'll stop at nothing. Ethan's heart sank. The tablet was a magnet for death, a lure that had ruined men. But Tahoma's life and his people's safety were worth more. I'll keep you safe, he said, his resolve firming, though doubt gnawed at him about the relic's curse. Their progress halted at midday when they reached a trading post tucked into a snow-covered arroyo, Cold Hollow, a haven for outlaws and wanderers. Ethan needed supplies, his stores depleted after the storm, but Tahoma tensed. Danger here, he warned. Men talk. Ethan nodded, his rifle ready. Inside, the air was frigid, the stench of unwashed bodies and stale liquor thick. A trader named Hank Barlow, a wiry man with a patchy beard, leaned against a crate, his eyes narrowing. Ethan Ward, he said. Heard you took in Apache fugitives. Slade's offering a bounty. Ethan's jaw tightened, his past with rustlers flashing. Mind your own, Hank. Barlow smirked, his gaze on the tablet. $300 says I tell him where you're headed. Nita's spear flashed, striking Barlow's arm, forcing him back. Speak, and you bleed, she hissed. Ethan stepped forward, his rifle aimed. Walk away, Hank. This ain't your fight. Barlow paled, retreating, his laughter echoing. Slade'll hunt you down. Ethan cursed under his breath. Barlow's treachery would lead Slade straight to Eagle's Perch. We move now, he said. The tribe's respect grew, their trust a tentative thread. You're brave, Kono said. Ethan shook his head, the weight of his past pressing down. I've been a drifter. The ambush came at dusk. Hoofbeats thundered through the snow, and 4 of Slade's men, led by a scar-faced rider named Slade, surrounded them near a frozen outcrop. Hand over the elder, Cowboy, Slade barked, his rifle raised. Ethan fired, his shot grazing Slade's arm, sending him staggering. Tahoma threw his staff, striking another's shoulder, while Nita's spear felled a third. Ethan's second shot dropped a rider, the outcrop falling silent save for the wind's moan. The 4th fled, shouting threats. Slade'll burn you out. They took cover behind the rocks, bandaging minor cuts, the cold seeping into their exhaustion. Nita's eyes met Ethan's, her suspicion easing. You fight for us, she said. Ethan wiped frost from his brow, his scar itching. Ain't right, what Slade did. I've got regrets of my own. Tahoma nodded, his pain surfacing. He killed my son for the tablet. Ethan's breath caught the relic was the key, a prize worth killing for. We'll keep it safe, he said, his resolve hardening. Their bond deepened as they rested, Ethan sharing his canteen, Nita offering berries from her pouch. Why carry that tablet? He asked. Tahoma held it up, its symbols glowing faintly. It guides to our spring, a gift from our ancestors. Slade wants it to claim our land. Ethan's heart ached, his losses echoing theirs. I lost my folks to a flood. Drifted since. Kono's gaze softened. We're all adrift then. Maybe we anchor together. The night stretched ahead, the desert vast, but the threat of Slade grew. Ethan taught Tahoma to use his lasso, the elder's hands trembling yet eager, their partnership a lifeline. Nita showed him Apache survival signs, their trust a flame against the desert's icy grip. You're wise, Ethan said. Tahoma smiled, a rare light in his aged eyes. You too, son. The tribe watched, their kinship deepening, a family forged in the crucible of the cold. But the peace was fleeting. Hoofbeats returned, closer now Slade and his men, relentless as the frost. Ethan chose a defensible ridge, setting up with the tribe behind rocks. We fight if we must, he said, his rifle ready. Nita nodded, her spear poised. Slade's men appeared, their rifles glinting. Last chance, Ward, Slade shouted. Ethan fired, his shot dropping a rider, but an arrow grazed Nita's leg, drawing a cry. Tahoma shielded her, his staff a barrier, while Kono's spear felled 2, forcing the attackers to retreat. They bandaged Nita's leg, Ethan's hands gentle. You're all my family now, he said. Nita's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. And you're ours. The desert tested them, its icy trials forging a bond, but Slade's wrath loomed larger, a storm they'd face together. Eagle's Perch was near, but so was their reckoning, the Arizona desert, cloaked in an unrelenting mantle of ice and snow, sprawled like a frozen crucible of red sand, its surface glistening under the pale glare of a midday sun struggling to pierce the thick gray clouds that hung low over the horizon. Ethan Ward, Tahoma, and the Apache tribe led by Nita pressed onward, the wagon creaking behind Ethan's steady hands, the gray stallion Storm plodding through the frozen dunes with a weary gait, his breath visible in the frigid air. Ethan's sun-faded duster, dusted with frost, clung to his broad frame, his worn boots crunching through the icy crust, his lasso coiled at his hip, his rifle slung across his back. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore a determined set, his hazel eyes scanning the horizon for signs of Slade's outlaws, a quiet resolve battling the weight of his past solitude. Tahoma walked beside him, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair now freed from ice, his gnarled hands clutching a carved staff, his dark eyes wise with survival despite the cold's toll. Nita followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her hands carrying the intricately carved tablet, her brown eyes vigilant with a leader's protectiveness, flanked by a dozen Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears and bows glinting in the weak light. The hidden Apache canyon near Eagle's Perch, their destination, was a day's journey, but the desert held other trials to forge their resilience against the icy grip. Their water was nearly frozen solid, the canteen they'd salvaged from Cold Hollow reduced to a few icy slivers, their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of dried berries Nita had foraged. The cold bit deep, its chill a relentless adversary, the silence broken only by the crunch of snow, the rasp of their breathing, and the distant howl of a wolf echoing through the valley. Ethan's mind wrestled with his past, his family's ranch lost to a flood, his father's death to the cold, a guilt that shadowed his every step. The presence of Tahoma and the tribe, a mirror to his loneliness, stirred a compassion he'd buried, their resilience a challenge to his wandering life. "We need to find shelter soon," Ethan said, his voice hoarse from the frigid air. Nita nodded, pointing to a faint shadow on the horizon. "There's a cave ahead, it might shield us," she replied, her Apache wisdom guiding them through the wasteland. The tribe's silence, broken only by soft murmurs and the occasional clink of weapons, hinted at their vigilance, the tablet a burden they carried together. They reached the cave as the sun weakened, its icy overhang a fleeting mercy against the biting cold. Ethan checked the wagon, its wheels frozen and creaking, while Tahoma and a warrior named Kono scouted for signs of life, their movements slow but determined despite the chill. The cave offered a shallow recess, its interior frigid but sheltered, a rare refuge in the desert's grip. Ethan melted snow for water, offering it to Kono first, his hands trembling from the cold. "Drink, friend," he said, the word warm with care. Kono accepted, his eyes softening. "Thank you, Ethan," he murmured, a rare nod breaking through his stoic demeanor. The moment was brief, but it deepened their bond, a thread of trust weaving through their shared struggle. The desert's icy grip struck at noon. A blizzard brewed on the horizon, a swirling wall of white snow that swallowed the sky, its roar a challenge to their endurance. "Get down!" Ethan shouted, pulling Tahoma, Nita, and the wagon into the cave's depths, the warriors joining them. The storm hit like a living entity, its force tearing at their clothes, snow clogging their cloaks and stinging their exposed skin. Ethan shielded Tahoma with his body, Nita and the warriors huddling close, the tempest raging for hours, leaving them buried in drifts, their meager supplies buried under the snow. As it passed, the desert revealed a new peril, an outlaw trap, a snare concealed by snow, its metal jaws glinting near Nita's foot. Ethan reacted instantly, yanking her back, the trap snapping shut inches from her. Tahoma's quick thinking with his staff dislodged the mechanism, saving them. "Good save," Ethan said, his respect for them growing. Nita nodded, her gaze steady. "The desert tests our spirit," she replied. That night, they camped in the cave's lee, a small fire their only warmth, its glow casting shadows on the icy walls. The blizzard had delayed them, the canyon still a day away, and Ethan's mind churned with guilt his family's loss, his years of drifting, now this tribe's fight. Nita offered him a berry, her hands gentle. "You fight for us," she said. "Why?" Ethan poked the fire, his face shadowed. "I turned away from help once my pa paid for it. Can't do that again." Tahoma's eyes softened, his pain surfacing. "Slade killed my son, took our peace." The confession hung heavy, a mirror to Ethan's regrets. Strength ain't just in survival, he said. It's in standing together. Kono leaned against him, his voice small. The tablet protects our spring. Slade wants it. Ethan's heart ached, his losses echoing theirs. I lost my folks to a flood, drifted since. Nita's gaze met his, a warmth breaking through. We're all lost then. Maybe we find family. Their talk was interrupted by a rustle. Apache figures emerged from the snow, led by a wiry man with a painted face. I am Tala, Nita's brother, he said, his voice cautious. We saw the storm. Slade hunts you. He offered a water skin, his eyes on Tahoma. You're alive, elder. We thought you lost. Nita ran to him, tears in her eyes. Ethan saved him. Tala nodded, offering Ethan a feathered cord. You're kin now, cowboy. The reunion was brief but heartfelt. Tala's warriors, 15 strong, joined them, their spears glinting. Slade's tracker, Red Jack, is near, Tala warned. He plans an attack at dawn. Ethan's heart steadied, his bond with the tribe a shield. We'll be ready, he said. Tahoma's hand found his trust a beacon. You're my son, he whispered. The words warmed him, a redemption he hadn't sought. The peace shattered as the first light crept over the horizon. Hoofbeats echoed Red Jack and 12 riders, their rifles ready, their intent clear in the pre-dawn gloom. Tala's men melted into the snowdrifts, leaving Ethan and the tribe exposed on the ridge. Hold, Tala whispered, but Ethan stood firm, his rifle raised, the weight of the warning settling in. Red Jack's voice cut through the cold. Give up the elder, Ward, or die. Ethan fired, his shot grazing a rider, but an arrow struck Tala's shoulder, drawing a cry. Nita shielded him, her spear a barrier, while Tahoma's staff distracted another, allowing Kono's arrow to fell a warrior. The outlaws retreated momentarily, their threats lingering in the air. They bandaged Tala's shoulder, Ethan's hands gentle. You're all my family now, he said. Nita's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. And you're ours. The desert tested them, its icy trials forging a bond. But Slade's attack loomed larger, a storm they'd face together. Eagle's Perch was near, but so was their reckoning. Eagle's Perch rose like a frozen crown atop the Arizona desert, its rocky plateau of red sandstone and snow-dusted outcrops standing defiant against the encroaching dawn. The pale light of early morning cast a silvery glow across the perch's rim, the air thick with the scent of frostbitten earth, and the faint promise of a warming breeze as the blizzard's aftermath lingered. Ethan, Ward, Tahoma, and the Apache tribe led by Nita prepared for their stand, the tension palpable in the stillness, heightened by the warning of an impending attack. Ethan's sun-faded duster was torn at the sleeve, his worn boots caked with ice and blood from his grazed leg, his lasso coiled at his hip, his rifle steady despite the ache in his muscles. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore a grim determination, his hazel eyes shadowed by the weight of his past solitude. Tahoma stood beside him, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair now dusted with snow, his gnarled hands clutching a carved staff, his dark eyes wise with a resolve that belied his age. Nita followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her leg wound bandaged, her hands wielding the intricately carved tablet, her brown eyes vigilant with a leader's protectiveness, flanked by a dozen Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears and bows poised for battle. The journey to this refuge had forged their bond, now tested by Slade's ruthless pursuit. The perch offered strategic ground-steep drops for ambushes, snow-covered outcrops for cover, and a narrow pass for traps. Ethan fortified a vantage point with Nita's men, his hands calloused from years of cattle drives, now skilled in war. Tahoma rigged tripwires with sinew, his movements slow but precise despite his exhaustion, his staff doubling as a tool. The warriors assisted, stacking ice-crusted stones with Kono, their vigilance unwavering. Slade wants the tablet, Nita said, her voice low and strained. He'll kill us for it. Ethan nodded, his guilt over past drifting fueling his resolve. We hold him here, he replied. Kono handed him a sharpened spear, a silent pledge of unity, the weapon's weight a comfort in his hands. Tala distributed spears and arrows, his warriors blending into the perch's icy shadows, their movements silent and deadly. Red Jack leads them, he warned. The attack is near. Ethan's heart steadied, his bond with the tribe a shield against the encroaching dawn. We fight as family, he said. Tahoma's eyes met his, a flicker of trust breaking through his pain. "You're my son," he said, his words a balm to Ethan's wounded spirit. The sentiment lingered, a redemption he hadn't dared hope for. As the wind carried the sound of approaching hooves, the warning now a reality. As the first light strengthened, the air grew taut with anticipation, the perch's silence broken by the crunch of boots on snow. Slade rode in with 15 men, Red Jack at his side, the tracker's scar-faced grin a harbinger of violence. Slade, a broad man in a black coat lined with stolen furs, dismounted and called out, his voice a thunderclap against the cliffs. "Ward, hand over the elder and that tablet, or this perch becomes your icy grave." Ethan stepped forward, his rifle raised, his voice firm despite the cold. "You'll have to take them over my dead body." "Slade," he shouted, his breath visible in the frigid air. The stand erupted like a winter storm. Slade's men charged, their rifles and revolvers spitting fire through the dawn. Ethan's first shot dropped a rider, the bullet finding its mark with a precision honed by years on the trail. Tala's warriors struck from the shadows, their spears felling 2 more, their movements silent and deadly. Tahoma triggered a tripwire, a dynamite cache salvaged from an old trapper's stash exploding and sending a shower of ice and rock, scattering the attackers. But Slade's numbers were overwhelming, and Red Jack's rifle was a relentless predator, his bullet grazing Ethan's arm, drawing a sharp hiss of pain. Nita pulled him behind a snowbank, her leg wound seeping anew. "Stay alive," she growled, loosing an arrow that struck a man's chest, her aim unwavering despite her fatigue. The perch became a battlefield, its echoes ringing with gunfire and the thud of falling bodies. Ethan fired again, dropping another rider, the cold numbing his hands but not his resolve. Tala's warriors fought with primal fury, their spears piercing the fray, while Kono and the warriors lobbed rocks, their forms a surprising force against the icy terrain. But Slade's voice cut through the chaos. "Tahoma, give me the tablet secret, or they all die." He held a pistol to Nita's head, the warrior's bow shattered, her eyes defiant. Tahoma's heart sank, the tablet clutched tight. "No!" he cried, his voice raw with emotion. Ethan's mind raced, he couldn't lose another father figure. He signaled Tala's men to hold, his gaze locking with Tahoma's, a silent plea for a plan. Tahoma stepped forward, his stance frail yet defiant despite his wounds. "Slade betrayed my tribe," he shouted, his voice carrying over the wind. "He sold our people to miners for gold, left us to die when we resisted." The revelation hit Ethan like a blizzard's blast. Slade's greed wasn't just for the tablet, but for the hidden spring it guarded, a secret his tribe had protected for generations. Slade laughed, his pistol steady. "Then you all die with your secrets." But Tahoma moved, shoving Ethan and Nita aside as Red Jack fired, the bullet tearing through his chest. He fell, blood staining the snow, his staff slipping from his grasp. "Ethan, no!" he roared, lunging to Tahoma's side, his hands trembling as he pressed against the wound. Tala's warriors charged, their spears a blur, felling 3 men in a surge of vengeance. Kono struck with a rock, stunning a rider, while Nita's arrow found another's leg. Ethan tackled Red Jack, their struggle a tangle of fists and ice, until his lasso tightened around the tracker's neck, ending the threat. Slade roared, charging with his pistol, but Tala's spear pierced his side, bringing him down. The remaining outlaws fled, their horses vanishing into the snowy dawn. Ethan knelt beside Tahoma, his hands stained with the elder's blood, his heart breaking as he tried to stem the flow. "Hold on," he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. Tahoma's eyes met his, a faint smile breaking through the pain. "You're my son now," he rasped. "Protect them. The tablet is our future." His hand fell, his spirit slipping into the desert's icy embrace, his sacrifice a final act of trust. Nita bound Slade, her men finishing the fight, the perch falling silent save for the wind's mournful wail. Slade was defeated, his men scattered, but Tahoma's loss was a wound deeper than the cold. Ethan cradled him, tears freezing on his cheeks, the weight of his words sinking in. Nita and Kono approached, placing the tablet and a woven blanket on his chest. "He was our leader," Nita said, her voice thick. "Now he's with our ancestors." The Apache carried him to a pyre, their chants rising, a tribute to his courage that echoed through the perch. Ethan stood, his guilt eased by Tahoma's forgiveness, his promise to protect the tribe a new purpose. The perch smoldered, the air heavy with loss and victory. Nita offered Ethan a place with the tribe, and he nodded. "I'll honor him at the canyon," he said, his voice steady. The journey to Eagle's Perch had broken Slade's grip, But Tahoma's sacrifice would resonate in the desert's silence. Ethan's redemption was his, and the tablet, his people's legacy, would remain guarded. The dawn broke over Eagle's Perch, a fragile light spilling across the snow-dusted sands, where the embers of Tahoma's pyre glowed like the last whispers of a fading star. The air was thick with the lingering scent of smoke and the crisp, icy aroma of the desert, the vast Arizona wilderness reclaiming the battlefield with a quiet, unyielding peace. Ethan Ward stood at the perch's edge, his sun-faded duster torn and dusted with ash, his worn boots planted firmly in the snow, his lasso and rifle resting against a boulder. His face, rugged with a scar across his left cheek, bore the weight of grief, his hazel eyes glistening with unshed tears, the guilt of his past solitude softened by Tahoma's final words. The intricately carved tablet, Tahoma's strange reward, hung around his neck on a cord, a symbol of the kinship that had brought him to this moment. Slayed, bound and defeated, slumped against a rock, his outlaw reign shattered, his greed no match for the courage of a cowboy and his adopted tribe. Nita, Tala, Kono, and the Apache warriors stood nearby, their painted faces etched with both loss and pride, while the valley below hinted at a future forged in unity. The Apache warriors, led by Nita, moved with a solemn reverence, their faces mirroring the perch's rugged hues as they gathered around Tahoma's pyre. The flames had dwindled to a gentle glow, the snow around it melted into a ring of dark earth, a testament to his sacrifice. Nita knelt, offering a prayer in Apache, her voice a deep chant that reverberated through the cliffs, honoring an elder who had transcended his role as a leader and father. Ethan watched, his hands trembling as he placed Tahoma's staff once his strength onto the pyre, a silent vow to carry his legacy forward. Tala and Kono joined him, adding a woven blanket and a carved arrow, their offerings a tribute to his courage. "He saved us," Nita said, her voice soft but resolute. "You kept his promise." Ethan nodded, the words a balm to his wounded soul, a redemption he hadn't dared to claim. The journey to the hidden Apache Canyon began, the warriors carrying the pyre's remnants through the perch's snowy pass, its ashes a sacred burden. The trail was treacherous, the ice cracking underfoot, the cold of the night giving way to a warming breeze that carried the promise of renewal. Ethan walked with them, his arm aching from the graze but his spirit lifted by their unity. The canyon emerged a sheltered valley nestled between towering mesas, its floor dotted with mesquite and a faint shimmer of a spring fed by an underground stream, now partially thawed by the rising sun. The Apache survivors greeted them, their faces etched with grief for Tahoma but warmth for his savior. Tala led Ethan to the spring, its waters clear and life-giving, reflecting the cavern walls adorned with painted symbols and woven mats, a sanctuary Tahoma had died to protect. "His spirit guards this place," Tala said. "You are kin." The tribe gathered around a fire that night, the canyon's walls amplifying their voices as they shared tales of Tahoma's bravery. His gifts to Ethan, his trust, the tablet were now symbols of his legacy, their weight heavier than the hidden spring they marked. They offered him a place among them, their eyes reflecting gratitude and hope. "You fought for him," Nita said, handing him a woven mat. "Stay and find peace." Ethan hesitated, his mind drifting to his past, a cowboy adrift since his family's ranch was lost, his father's death a guilt he'd carried like a stone. Tahoma's words, "You're my son," echoed, his sacrifice a key to unlock that prison. "I'll stay," he said finally, "but I'll bring my skills to your canyon. With your help." The days that followed were a blend of mourning and rebuilding. The Apache taught Ethan their ways, how to channel the spring's water for crops, how to weave mats from desert grasses, how to honor the land with rituals by the fire. The tribe's children, including a young girl named Aya, became his shadows, their knowledge of their elders' traditions complementing Ethan's cowboy expertise. They constructed a small adobe home near the spring, its walls rising under their hands, a fusion of Apache resilience and Ethan's craftsmanship. The desert, once a place of solitude, became a bridge between worlds, its silence broken by the tribe's laughter and the trickle of water, a stark contrast to the icy silence he'd known. One evening, as the sun set, painting the canyon in shades of orange and purple, Ethan stood at the spring's edge, the carved tablet a constant reminder. Aya and the children joined him, holding a new blanket and a carved staff crafted by the tribe. "For us?" Aya asked. Ethan nodded, his eyes misting as he handed them out. "Your grandfather would want you to have them," he said. Aya smiled, a rare light in her young face. "He gave us a home," the sentiment lingered. a bond forged in the crucible of the cold, strengthened by the promise of a united future. The tribe celebrated with a feast, their songs filling the canyon, Tahoma's name woven into the melodies. Ethan learned his story in full, how he'd led the tribe through Slade's raid, how he'd hidden the tablet to save their spring, how his spirit now watched over them, his past, his failure to save his father, his years of aimless wandering faded against Tahoma's forgiveness. He wasn't just a cowboy anymore, but a guardian, a son to those he'd once failed. Nita approached, offering a carved wooden flute. "Lead with his wisdom," she said. Ethan took it, his hand steady. "I will." Weeks later, the canyon thrived, its spring nourishing new crops, its people strengthened by Ethan's aid. The tribe, true to their promise, began plans to restore Ethan's lost outpost, their hands working to rebuild what the flood had taken, a symbol of their gratitude taking root. He rebuilt his life, the tribe's help a lifeline, their stories a balm to his loneliness. Tahoma's staff hung above the new home's door, a shrine to his sacrifice, its wood a silent witness. The desert stretched vast, its snow-dusted sands a testament to their fight, but it was no longer a place of solitude. Ethan's redemption was complete, not in land, but in the family he'd found: Nita, Tala, Kono, Aya, the tribe all bound by Tahoma's legacy. As the sun rose over Eagle's Perch, its golden light bathed the canyon and the distant silhouette of the restored outpost, a promise of a new beginning. Ethan stood at the home's threshold, the wooden flute at his side, the carved tablet gleaming. He was no longer just a cowboy who'd offered shelter, but a son to an elder whose courage had saved him, whose tablet had turned peril into a legacy of strength. The desert whispered his name, and Ethan carried it forward, a united refuge born from the ashes of sacrifice, with the promise of a rebuilt home anchoring their future.